So I actually sort of inherited Ricky of Generations. I ended up buying this house, and he had been employed by the previous owner to do a pretty extensive renovation of the house before it went on sale. And this totally beautiful window that we have behind us got caught up in all of the mess with the supply chain of COVID. So I ended up buying the house with a giant hole in the wall with tarps and temporary insulation and plywood and no window. And I am in property management. I work with a lot of contractors on the island, and I did not know Ricky at all. So I talked to him, and I interviewed him, and I decided he had done a fantastic job roofing, renovations, painting. This window was actually a very complicated job. The flashing had failed. It was too close to the roof line. It had caused rot in the wall. And so it was one of those projects that was just kind of a mess from every direction. And we again ran into more problems with the supply chain. And I don't know, Ricky and I waited a year and a half. The original window couldn't be built anymore. Then we had to change plans and a redesign, and then wait for the supply chain on that window. So here was this poor contractor who was earning no money from me, and Ricky's communication with me was outstanding. I mean, honestly, perhaps the best I've ever worked with any kind of subcontractor. He kept me in the know of every step. What was getting delayed? Could we get the window? Could we not get the window? How might we change plans? How could we change the design? Ricky basically had a huge mess on his hands, changed owners in the middle of it, and he handled this job so professionally, problem solved through everything, had fantastic suggestions. We ended up coming under budget than was anticipated, which is always a bonus. And once we eventually finally got the window, Ricky was now having to navigate a rental season, as this is a house that's used for very short-term summer rentals. So he had this very tight window to work in. Ricky got his crew in within a matter of days, had completely replaced the window, pulled out the debris, repainted walls, re-insulated, re-drywalled, dealt with all the rot and the mess that we had. And when his boys pulled out a couple hours before my next rental showed up, there was no sign that they were here. There was no debris. There was no insulation. There were no leftover nails from the nail gun. It was an incredibly professional job. I was actually on site during the installation because I was doing my own repairs. So I got to spend a couple days with those guys, and they were fantastic. And they actually ended up helping me with a couple of other issues and projects with their own suggestions. So Ricky's communication is outstanding. He was so professional and so patient, even though he wasn't getting paid for all of that communication. The quality of his work was fantastic. His crew was very respectful, and as a woman in property management, that isn't always the case, and I have run into some problems, and those guys were great. They were absolutely fantastic. They were neat, they were tidy, they were kind. Since then, I've kind of adopted Ricky, if I'm allowed to say that, and I now am using him not extensively, but at this point, the vast majority of my work, I'm giving over to Ricky because I completely trust him that much. And we've now been through multiple jobs, and he's never steered me wrong. I couldn't speak more highly of a contractor than of Ricky.